Hey there drone fans, Rick here again from Drone Valley. In today's clip, I'd like to show you my favorite new hack for the DJI Osmo Pocket. Now I've been working on this for the last couple of weeks and I didn't really want to talk about it in the channel until I completely understood how it works so I could show you how to do it and really explain the technology behind it so you understood why it worked. Now let me talk about the Osmo Pocket a little bit before I get into the hack. I love this product and I've raved about it on the channel for the last couple of months. I'm still blown away by the fact that something that small allows me to spin it up really quickly and capture 4K stabilized footage that rivals my DSLR. I take this thing with me everywhere. I just think it's an amazing product. And the fact that they built a tiny little display on the front that I could use to frame the shot means I can use it in handheld mode. I can get at the menus underneath through that screen. And if I need a larger screen than that, I can use the universal port on the front, slide one of these connectors on, either the USB-C or the Apple product connector, take my phone, make this connection to the side and have a really nice package here that gives me a nice big monitor where I can get at some of the advanced settings for the video and I can see what I'm framing a little bit more clearly. And this works well, and this is how I use it most of the time. And I've talked about some mounts that you can use to hold these guys together and put them on a tripod or a selfie stick. But there are times where I want to use this product disconnected from the monitor and use this as sort of a remote monitor. So I could have this maybe above a crowd or on a selfie stick, getting close to something and have a monitor over here to make sure that I've got the right framing for it. So as with most products I get, I love playing with them and trying to find ways that I can use them sort of in an expanded version. So with this one, I spent a lot of time thinking about how could I extend this connection. Now there are a couple of obvious choices. You could use a female lightning connector on this end, so it slides over the lightning connector, comes across to a male lightning connector to connect to your phone. Now they do make cables like that. I bought about 6 of them. They were kind of spotty. Some worked, some didn't work. And I'll get into a little bit of the technology now and I'll explain more of it later. But the problem with cables are that cables can either be charging cables or charging and data cables. Now you won't know that when you buy the cable. Sometimes they'll tell you, sometimes they won't. The less expensive ones are typically charging cables. The only thing you can use that for is to charge the device. There are no wires in there to connect, to conduct the data that needs to be used to do syncing and things like that. So when you buy a cable like that, you got to make sure that it's both a data and a charging cable. But even the ones that I bought that worked were kind of spotty because that connection is only a friction connection. And if you're using that monitor away from it a little bit, you're pulling on that cord that may pop off the end. So even though it worked, it wasn't the greatest solution for it. So I started experimenting a little bit. Now one other side note which is pretty interesting is if you have this connector in this position where the connections are outward, that port is being used, which means you don't see data at this bottom port. If you want to see data at the bottom port, you've got to pull this guy off completely or put it in what I'll call the storage position like that. When you do that, now this bottom port becomes active. Now the bottom port's always active for charging. You can actually charge this while you're using it, and I'm working on another clip to show you how to do that. But once this is in the storage position, this product, the software is assuming you're not going to use that connection and you're going to use this connection on the bottom. So I started experimenting a little bit with the USB-C connection on the bottom because the USB standard provides for both power, video and audio to be transported across that interface. So I thought USB-C is the latest interface standard. They must be able to export data from that connection because they're selling accessories that need to get at that data. So for example, they have a Wi-Fi base now that's out. When this plugs into it, you can control it through that. That'll need to transport data through that USB-C connection. They're also coming out with a microphone adapter that plugs in the bottom. I'm waiting for that one. That'll actually allow you to use an external microphone. So I knew the data was available at that port, but getting at that data and transferring that data to your phone is a little bit tricky. So where this all started was with the USB-C connection down here. So I looked for a male USB-C to a male lightning connector, and you can buy those. Apple sells those. I think they're $39. They're really expensive, but they do make a cable that works, and that is a charging and data cable. But I thought that's really expensive. Plus, now I have to make sure I have that exact cable with me, and it doesn't work for Android. I wanted a solution that worked for Android and Apple and try to find something that's a little more universal. So did a lot of experimenting with what are called OTG adapters. Now these are on-the-go adapters, but they're a way to convert a USB-C, male on this end, to a standard USB-A over here. And the challenge with these OTG adapters are a lot of companies, and there's hundreds of companies that make these, a lot of the companies call them OTG adapters, but they're really nothing more than charging adapters. So as I mentioned before, the cable can be either data or data and charging, or just charging. These can be the same. So the challenge is if you get the wrong cable, it's only a charging cable, or you get the wrong OTG adapter, which is only a charging adapter, none of this is going to work. So what you need, out of all the ones I've tested, and I probably have 6 more of these upstairs on my desk, I found one that works. So this is an OTG data and charging connector, which allows you then to take the USB-C that's on the bottom of this and convert it to a standard USB-A. You still have the challenge of the cable. Now, if you've got cables that are both charging and data cables, you can use this adapter with your own cable. You don't need a special cable for it, but we're putting a kit together that gives you everything you need in case you just want to buy it and use it. But that OTG has to be a data and charging. The challenge was those are expensive. I was looking all over the place for them, and they're $12.95, $14.95 for a single unit. Some of them are $19.95. This one here, which actually didn't work, was $21.95, and it didn't do the job for the data. It connected, but then it would break and connect again, and that's just a pain in the neck. I want something I can plug in and use and just go off and run with it. So anyway, I spent a lot of time finding the right type of connector, the OTG connector, and we work with a lot of manufacturers overseas. So I put a contract together. We bought a ton of these, had them manufactured for us specifically, and these work great, and they're not that expensive. So we built a kit, and I'll talk about this at the end of the clip, but I built a kit where you can get just 2 of these from us on the website, or you can get 2 of these with the cable that's right for your phone, and that way you have everything you need. But essentially the way this works is it plugs into the bottom of your Osmo Pocket, and if you've got the right cable, and again, it's got to be a data and charging cable, you can plug that into the bottom, and then you can use it with your phone or your tablet. Let me just power this guy up real quick. So once this guy's powered up, if I plug this, let me unplug it here. If I plug this into the bottom of the phone, it should activate the DJI Mimo app because it recognizes the fact that I've got an Osmo plugged into it. So it's plugged in there. Let me turn this guy on. Okay, that guy's ready to go. The minute I plug this in now, well, it goes through its power and self-test. Okay, we're good. I plug him in. I'm going to hold my hand in front of it because, there we go. So you see the application came up, and you can see, let me spin this around so I'm not looking at the shop because it's kind of a mess in here. Okay, that's a little better. So that's me. And you can see that it's working just fine. Now, what's really cool about this is that I've got complete control over the joystick movements. I can make adjustments to the color and all the other ISO settings that I need to. And I can hold that someplace other than in front of me. So for example, if I'm filming at a concert, maybe I've got this thing over my head. Let me spin it around. If I'm at a recital or a concert, I've got this over my head and I can actually watch it from here, and I'm not annoying everybody by having this big thing up over my head. So I can have this thing on a selfie stick or in my hand and make sure that the framing is right as I'm following the action at a soccer game or at a recital. And then on top of it, I can also use it even higher on a selfie stick that gets it well above the crowd. And I think that's just a wonderful way to do it. Now again, this works for both the Apple products, which I've got here. It works with a USB-C Android device. So if you've got some of the newer phones that have a USB-C connector here, we've got a kit for that as well. The one it doesn't work with at this point is the micro USB, and I'm still working on that. I've got it working with a couple of different phones out there, and I know a lot of people have talked about how they've gotten it working with their phone. What I'm finding is that with Android in particular, the larger Android products like the tablets, it has a problem with, because the application is written for a phone-sized screen, and it doesn't interpret well going to a larger screen like on a tablet. Interestingly, on the Apple products, it does work on the tablets. I've checked it on my iPad Mini 4 and a couple of the tablets, and it works just great. But for some reason, Android, it doesn't work on the larger tablets. At this point, with the micro USB connection, I've gotten it working on some of the phones, but intermittently, where it's a little bit slow, there's a bit of lag in the video, and it's just not the kind of experience that I want to use. Now, I'm not sure, I'm still testing. I'm not sure if that's based on the type of phone you're using. Maybe it's not a powerful enough phone to actually run the application at that speed at a remote connection, but I'll update you if we get through that. But for now, you can do this with your Apple product, and you can do it with an Android product as long as it's USB-C, and this opens up a ton of possibilities for you. So how do I use this thing? Well, a lot of times I'll have it like in a stand on the desk, and I'll use it with a clamp. If you're going to put it on a selfie stick or something like that, it's got to be a clamp type connector. But once you make this connection, then you can put this thing up in the air. So let me just get this guy on here real quick. So I've got to pull this connector off to put the one on for the DJI attachment. And basically that slides on the front like this, slides down over. Let me get this clamped up. Sorry, I should have done this before I started the clip. Anyway, now I'm ready to go. I've got a USB, I should say a 1/4" 20 on the bottom, and that allows me to take like a selfie stick, put it on the selfie stick, and then get this thing up over a crowd. So now you've got the ability to hold this thing up really, really high. And this goes even higher, but I've only got so much room for the ceiling. But you can see already that I've got this thing up in the air and I've got it, you know, viewed down here, so I can actually do this without annoying too many people. The other nice thing about it, which I love, is the fact that you can also combine this with a tripod, and all these accessories are on the website. But you can combine it with a tripod. Now what this does for me is it allows me to very quickly set up sort of a, let me spin it around, sort of a vlogging setup, and I can put this higher if I want to, so I could raise this guy up if I decide I need it a little higher. But now I've got the perfect vlogging setup where I can use my Osmo Pocket, let me spin it around, where it's looking at me, it's doing the face tracking, and I've got a beautiful little monitor. So if I want to make sure that I'm in screen and I'm in the center of the screen and my framing is right, or if I want to demonstrate a product, I can glance down at that monitor and have a nice little setup where I've got the Osmo recording and I've got a monitor down beneath. So you can imagine the possibilities of using this thing. But this hack, this ability to sort of connect this to the bottom, requires two things, and I'll just go over them briefly again. The first thing it requires is an OTG connector that's compatible, which also transfers both power and data. So again, that's really important to find one like that. And the second is you have to have a cable that'll also support both data and power. And I know there's a lot of guys out there that have tried different hacks and it's worked on their phone. Then people have tried to do the same thing and it hasn't worked. That's the reason it's not working for you, is that both of those components have to be both data and power transports. And again, there's a lot of companies out there. You can find them on Amazon, you can find them on eBay that are selling them for really, really small numbers, you know, in the dollar range. I'm telling you, they're not going to work for data. So it's important to find those two things that work. And again, if you want it to happen simply, I've got two kits. And again, you can find this stuff anywhere, but we put two kits together on the site. I've got one that's an Apple kit, and I've got one that's an Android kit for the USB-C connections. And in those kits, you'll get this cable. Now, the cable's a really nice, flexible cable. It's durable. That's got a nice little cloth outside of it, so it's not sticky and slippery. A lot of the cables you get are really rigid, and they're stiff, and you can't expand them. It's 100 centimeters, so it's plenty long. I like that it's black because it's kind of innocuous. You don't see it. It's kind of hidden when you're using it. It matches the OTG connector. So we did our best to put together a nice little kit for you. And again, those are available on the website. So that's all I had for today. If you have any questions about what I've covered, I love doing this kind of exploration because the nerd in me looks at something like that and says, how can I expand the use of that? What can I do that's different? And what do I do every day that I'd like to do more of? And that's separating the monitor from the actual Osmo Pocket was something that I definitely needed to do. This is a rock solid way to do that. So thanks an awful lot for watching. Again, if you have questions, drop them below. We'll get back to you as quickly as I can. I've got a ton more clips coming on the Osmo and a bunch of other products that are out there in the tech space. So if you haven't subscribed to the channel, please hit that subscribe button down there because we have a lot of really cool stuff coming that you're going to want to see. Anyway, that's it for today. So until next time, happy flying.